Hi everyone, this is Francis Garcia, and today I will be discussing and I will be telling you some stories in the Philippine literature written in English language. There are numerous literary pieces that were written by those prominent writers, authors, and individuals in the past. But today I will just be sharing to you four stories, novels, and also song, no, that are also part of the Philippine literature. And after that, we would also be identifying or analyzing the literary theories that were depicted or that were viewed in this type of stories, novel, and song. So the first literary piece that we will be diving in this video is about the story or the novel of Nick Joaquin, or also known as Quijano de Manila as his pseudonym, and also the anagram of his name Joaquin. So the novel entitled The Woman Who Had Two Navels. So Nick Joaquin's The Woman Who Had Two Navels in 1961 is a Filipino novel that revolves around Connie Escobar, a woman who insists that she has two navels. So this physical abnormality is symbolic rather than literal, representing her psychological and emotional burdens. Connie is haunted by her past, especially her mother's infidelity, which she views as a betrayal. She projects her shame, confusion, and trauma into the belief that she has two navels. Her delusion symbolizes her inability to reconcile her personal identity with the colonial, social, and familial pressure around her. So this novel unfolds in post-World War II Philippines, where characters grapple with the remnants of Spanish and American colonization, class struggles, and personal conflicts. Connie's search for meaning and escape from the weight of her two navels reflects the struggle of a society caught between tradition and modernity, East and West, past and present. Now let us talk about the themes of the story. So there are four themes that were viewed in in the story The Woman Who Had Two Navels, and those are colonial identity and cultural alienation. And there is also a psychological trauma and personal disillusionment. And we have also tradition versus modernity. And lastly, the search for freedom and truth. So those are the themes that were viewed in the novel The Woman Who Had Two Navels by Nick Joaquin. Now let us analyze if what is the literary theory or used or viewed in this type of novel. So based on my understanding and my point of view, so the literary theory that is depicted in this story is all about post-colonialism. Because as what you have understood in the novel, it is unfolded during the World War II in the Philippines, and also it is because of the colonialism of Spanish and American colonizer. So, in the view of post-colonialism theory, the Philippines' colonial history is central. So, Connie's two navels symbolize the dual burden of Spanish and American colonial influence, leading to identity fragmentation. And also, the characters' struggles represent how colonialism leaves psychological scars and cultural alienation. So the woman who had two navels reflects the fractured identity of a nation scared by centuries of colonization. Due to the fact of Connie's belief that she has two navels symbolizes the divided self of Filipinos, torn between colonial influence and native heritage. The novel shows how Western ideals create cultural alienation and psychological burden, while also exposing the struggle to recover an authentic identity. So, in this way, the story becomes a critic of colonial legacies and a call for self definition beyond colonial shadows. So, that is the reason why it is viewed under the post colonialism theory. Now let us move on to another story, which is The Wedding Dance by Amador T. Daguio. So this is also one of the literary pieces here in the Philippines that were also written in English language, and it was written by Amador T. Daguio. So the story of The Wedding Dance by Amador T. Daguio. The wedding dance is set in a traditional tribal community in the Cordillera region of the Philippines. And it follows Awiyao and Lumnay, who are the character of the stories, a married couple. After years of marriage without a child, Awiyao is forced by tribal custom to marry another woman who can give him a child or children. The story takes place during Awiyao's second wedding celebration. Lumnay, Heartbroken, refuses to attend. Awio visits her, trying to explain his decision, telling her she can remarry and offering her positions as a consolation. But Lumnai rejects the material gifts because what she truly wants is Awio's love, not wealth. So the story ends with Lumnai fleeing into the fields, consumed by grief and loneliness. So the story revolves around how tradition or custom of a specific community could ruin or could break the relationship between two couples because of the reason that Owiao should need to have a child, and if the woman that he loves couldn't bear him a child, so he need to find another woman to bear him or to provide him children. Now let us talk about the theme of the story, The Wedding Dance by Amador Tidaguio. So the themes of this story are: number one, we have tradition versus personal desire. Number two, we have sacrifice and duty. Number three, we have love and loss. And number four, we have role of women in society. Now let us analyze if what is the literary theory that we can understand or we can view in this story, The Wedding Dance by Amador T. Daguio. So, the theory that was being viewed here is all about new historicism. On the other hand, it can also be viewed as a feminism. So let us talk about first the new historicism theory. So from a new historicist perspective, or as we have understood, Amador Daguio's The Wedding Dance reflects the cultural and historical values of traditional Philippine tribal society, where the continuation of bloodlines was prioritized over personal happiness. Awiyao's decision to leave Lumnai is not simply a matter of personal choice, but one dictated by the collective belief that a man's worth and a family's honor depend on producing children. And the story also shows how women, like Lumnai, were often defined by their fertility and placed in a position of subordination when they could not fulfill this societal expectation. At the same time, the ritual of the wedding dance itself symbolizes the power of tradition, reinforcing community unity while suffering in individuals' feeling. So by situating the story within its cultural context, New Historicism reveals how the character's private pain is inseparable from the larger historical forces that govern their lives. So in New Historicism perspective, it is really evident that how culture can change the way of living of a person, as what we have noticed that Awia really surrendered or suffered a lot because of their family traditions. That Awia needs to break up to Lumnai or with Lumnai because knowing that Lumnai couldn't bear a child. So in their family tradition, Awia need to find or Awio needs to find a woman who can bear him a child or a children because that is the bloodline or that is the tradition that they have in their community. So it is really important for them to follow the culture or the traditions that they have, no, despite of some negative consequences in terms of their feelings, like they may be experience hurt, no, they maybe experience grief, sorrow because of that decision, but because of no choice, they really need to follow their culture and tradition. On the other hand, this story, The Wedding Dance, can also be viewed and can also be understood in the feminist literary theory. So Lumnai's suffering highlights the limited role of women in her society, where her value is tied to fertility. The story critiques how patriarchy and cultural norm diminish a woman's identity and happiness. Her emotional struggle and quiet resistance make her a powerful symbol of women questioning and resisting their lack of agency. So the wedding dance reveals how patriarchal traditions reduce women's worth to their ability to bear children. Now, in our third literary piece, we also have a short story or a story entitled The Mats. So The Mats was written by Francisco Arciliana or Francisco Franz Arciliana. So this is also an example of a literary piece in Philippine literature that was written also in English language. So the story centers on the Marcelino family whose father brings home beautiful, specially made sleeping mats banig from his trip in Mariveles. So each mat is personalized, embroidered with their name or with the name of a family member. As he distributes the mats, joy and excitement fill the house until he takes out mats for three of their children who had already died. So the name of his daughters that were already died are Victoria, Concepcion, and Angelica. So the atmosphere changes, sadness and grief return, but the mats also become symbols of remembrance and enduring love. Now let us talk about the themes of the story The Mats. So there is family love and remembrance, death and memory. So even in loss, family members remain alive in memory. And also have tradition and identity. So the mat, a common Filipino household item, becomes a vessel for cultural identity and family heritage, because this story also talks about how a father loves his family member, because when wherever he goes he always have this pasalubong, to present to his family. So even that those family members who already passed out or who were already died, no, he still brings something to those family members who already passed out. Like for instance, his daughters, his three daughters. So even though that they are already passed out or they are already dead, he always thinks of them, because even though that they are not in their presence or they are not in in their house, but the love and the memories that they have will always remain on their heart and also on their mind. Now let us talk about the literary theory that we can understand or we can view in this story, The Mats by Francisco Arceliana. So the story that we have or that we can understand or depict in the story is all about Marxist or Marxism theory. Though subtle, the mats also revealed class and labor value. The mats are hand-woven, symbolizing the work of artisans. So they show how material objects carry meaning in society, especially how family identity is expressed through ownership of crafted items. The mats shows how material objects embody both class identity and ideology. The embroidered mats, through although ordinary household items, are transformed into symbols of love, memory, and unity, reflecting the middle class aspiration of the family to preserve dignity and traditional through possessions. So at the same time, the mats remind readers of the invisible labor of artisans, whose work is often undervalued in a capitalist society, yet her gains culture and emotional worth. Finally, the father's act of distributing the mats reflects how authority and ideology are reproduced within the family structure, mirroring larger social power relations. In this way, the story highlights how class, labor, and ideology shape even the most intimate aspects of human life. And for the last literary piece in Philippine literature, we have Bakya ni Neneng that was sung by Ulihing Tubo. So Bakya ni Neneng's song by Ulihing Tubo is a traditional Filipino folk song that expresses admiration and affection for a woman named Neneng through the symbolic use of her bakya or wooden clogs. The singer praises her beauty, modesty, and charm, showing how even something as simple and ordinary as her footwear becomes meaningful because it is connected to her. At its heart, the song is about love and admiration, a man's way of expressing his feelings by elevating the ordinary into something special. It also reflects aspects of Filipino culture where humility, simplicity, and traditional femininity are highly valued traits in women. Now let us analyze or understand if what is the literary theory that we can understand or we can view in this traditional folk song entitled Bakya ni Neneng. So the literary theory that we can understand or we can view in this literary song is feminist or feminism. Alright, so from the lens of feminist theory, the song demonstrates the male gaze where the female figure is positioned as an object of admiration rather than an active subject. Neneng remains silent and passive, with the male voice defining her worth. So this reinforces patriarchal roles in which men are active observers and women are just only passive bearers of beauty. Furthermore, the bakya, a symbol of the common folk, ties femininity to simplicity and humility, reflecting not only gender expectations but also class-based ideals imposed on women. So in short, bakya ni Neneng is viewed in feminist theory because it illustrates how women are idealized, objectified, and confined to traditional roles within Filipino culture, serving as a mirror of patriarchal structure. So it is really evident in this story, no, that it is under feminist or feminism because as what you have observed earlier, that the female figure is positioned as an object of admiration rather than an active subject. So it feels like a female is just like an object for admiration purposes only rather than an active subject. And it really states that how patriarchal roles can really undermine now the existence of women, because as what they have said or as what this song all about, it talks about how a female can only be seen as an object rather than an active subject, so meaning to say that a man is more powerful and can also be superior, no, rather than a female. And that's the end of our literary analysis for today. And I hope that you also gained something from my definition and also my description. So if you would like to read these stories, novel, and song, you may be able to visit these sources and you can read whenever or wherever you want. So thank you so much for watching this video and goodbye.